Different parts of our faith walk and our faith journey towards the kingdom of the Lord require different leaderships and leadership styles. These are two lessons we learn from the book of Joshua. Joshua chapter 1, verse 1 up until verse 2. Where in verse 1 it opens up by God speaking to Joshua saying that my servant Moses is now dead. For which we need to remember who Moses was. Moses was the man who God appointed to lead his people out of Egypt, to begin the Exodus. Through him they learned to trust God as a leader. Through him they learned to trust God as a savior. Through him they witnessed the works of God. In this we can see they grew to know God through Moses, or they grew to trust in the Lord through Moses. Yet Moses was not meant to complete the journey of the Exodus. He was set to a point wherein he would perish, and then there would be a new appointed leader who is Joshua. For this is what verse 2 said, that Joshua will now have to go and pass the river Jordan with the people of Israel, God appointing him as a leader, for which the people of Israel need to learn to trust in God again through Joshua, to know that he is still the same God. Though the leader may have changed, he is still the same God. Though their journey is progressing, and though they are no longer in Egypt, and though they are no longer in the desert, but they are moving towards land, he is still the same God. For which in this, the Spirit of the Lord led me to have a reflection in my life where I felt that God had forsaken me, or God had left me alone. Why? Because he was no longer the same God. He is still the same God, but he was no longer expressing himself the same way that he was expressing himself in the beginning of my journey, which to me was a Moses phase, where in the Lord I saw the Lord work in a different way than he's working now. Why? Because we are called to mature in faith. Because in that time where I was seeing the Lord back then, when I first met the Lord, it was a time of infancy in my spiritual life. I was a child, and because I was a child, God was treating me like a child. He held me by my hand. He was walking me, teaching me to crawl, teaching me how to walk. And there came a time and a day for me to stand on what he was teaching me. For we have been called to maturity. These are two things we learn or remember from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. For Paul says that I used to be a child, thinking like a child, acting like a child, and talking like a child. But now that I'm a man, I act as a man. For which we further remember James chapter 2, verse 2 to 3, verse 2 to 4, when James says that, count it many joys, my brothers and sisters, when you come face to face with trials and temptations of many sorts. For this is for perseverance to do his work. And once perseverance has done his work, you will then be matured and complete, lacking nothing. Highlighting the word matured. We've been called to mature. And this comes at a cost of a different phase of God. The same God, but a different expressions of God in our life, wherein he starts off as one who is babying us through the journey. Why? So that we can learn to stand. And when he finally realizes that we are at a point that we are to be matured, he then allows us to walk the same way that a parent leaves their child to walk on their own. Why? Because this is a phase of Joshua. Our faith journeys have a Moses phase, wherein we are still in our infancy, learning to know this God, learning to trust in this God. And then there is a Joshua phase that requires maturity to learn to retrust in the same God, that we can stand in the same God, so that we can be matured. For if he treats us in the same way,